On the right are some housing units that were used by the administration. They were better built, and so they lasted longer and were not removed. They're now used for, I believe, farm workers.
This is the jail in Tule Lake, location camp. You can get the scale of the prison in relationship to the people in front of it. So it wasn't very big. It was supposed to house only 25 prisoners, but they had over 100 people in there because of the amount of no-nos that were put into prison because they would not sign the form for to determine whether they were loyal or not to the United States.
But anyway, the jail was the mainstay, but the stockade was a processing point to send all Hoshidon people after they got through using them. The staff used them much as they can to coerce people, I said before, to join the Hoshidon or to go to the Japanese school. Japanese school was the original pusher of the Hoshidon group, and they people that never heard the story, the administration allowed to have a full-time Japanese school. Any questions here?
This is
Yes.
a rough line of the jail. You can see the rebars exposed from all the weathering that has taken place.
The cover, the metal cover, was put on by the highway department, DMV, put that up to preserve the building.
Sort of cells that the prisoners were held within. Not very big, you can see. Pretty tight space. And there's another cell through here. Series of cells in here. And then they found to the main room. Looks like the shower. Shower facility with the drain. imitation of one of the existing showers. Oh yeah, you can see the drain piles. There's the drains of each. So it must have been a communal shower where several people will take a shower together. The elements. This is the site of the Tule Lake internment segregation camp where the barracks were located. And as you can see, there's not much left of the campsite. There's an airstrip right now that runs down the middle of the relocation camp. What used to be a fire break between the two halves of the camp.
One block away from my apartment in Soho, in New York City, in January 2001.
You were just walking by.
It was winter, I think it was New Year's Day. I have a diary somewhere where I said I met this interesting guy. He was drawing cats outside in the very cold weather. And I was curious and concerned, and I like cats. So he gave me a drawing and asked me to take a picture of it. And I came back with a camera, and he sort of posed like it's a still picture. And it was a movie camera, so I asked him if he has some stories he can tell me about what he's drawing. And he had a lot of stories to tell. So I just kept coming back with the camera, and he kept telling me more stories. And you saw what developed from there.
Taiwan people know that Taiwan people on the Pentagon examination after 10,000 people my bookを見てくれます。どうもありがとうございました皆さん。さようなら。
This is the last time he's going to come back to Tule. He's saying goodbye to Tule.
예. 모든 people 많은 밑에 린다가 무비 디렉터가 기억해くれました.
I think he said I'm a good movie director.
Yeah. He's right.
Yoshikawa-san too. Did you all meet Masa Yoshikawa, our co-producer? It's a big part. 2002, which was our first time, was seeing Castle Rock Mountain and recognizing it from seeing him draw it from memory for 60 years in New York City. So I still get chills when I see that image. Yeah.
He says that he's got this writing on a cane that talks about Tule Lake, and I was wondering if he could translate. He said this is all Japanese, and a younger person tried to translate, but she couldn't understand some of the old writing.
Where did that come from?
My folks had this cane,
Oh.
and I couldn't bring it because it was too
We just translated some of the words that are on the cane that we got from our parents.
This is a song that many of you might know. It's called The Prisoner of Love. And I had a friend in OCEC to change the words to I'm just a prisoner of war. And so it tells about the incarceration. Okay. Alone from night to night, you'll find me. Too late to break the chains that bind me. I need no shackles to remind me. I'm just a prisoner of war. For one command I must obey now. They took my home and friends away now. I can't believe that this is my fate now. I'm just a prisoner of war.
Yeah.
kind-hearted anything, laudable, likable, marvelous, magnificent, life, priceless, like it wasn't rare and many facilities, plenty, superb sensation.
Let me do one song for you. You are the one who makes me happy when everything else is so gray. Yours is the voice that wakes me mornings and gets me out to the day. You are my crowd that sits quiet, listening to me, and nothing else sunshine day. You are more than a few things worth remembering, and since it's all true, how could anyone mean more to me than you? Than you.
The very popular song, even in Argentina, which is called Shimono.
This is the fountain feature in the campus, college campus. Kind of reminds me of Frosh Pond at the University of Washington. And then hill is the Student Union building, and this is where we had dinner last night on this balcony. And the cafeteria is on the inside. But this is where most of the activity is taking place for the Tule Lake relocation pilgrimage. It's a very, very beautiful campus. It used to be like the old University of Washington, where they left a lot of trees, a lot of open space. We have just come back from some interactive sessions. And these are the people that are just leaving and heading for lunch.
Because of things like this. I mean, there's a lot of healing that goes on at these pilgrimages. And so, again, thank you so much from the community in terms of what the Tule Lake Committee does in terms of healing our community. Thank you. So, in talking about healing, I want to show some clips about a really traumatic time. And, we're going to talk about trauma a little bit later with Satsuki Ina. But in my experiences, Barbara introduced me as this ex-Microsoft guy, this technology person. But in the last 16 years, I've conducted over 200 oral history interviews. So when people ask me what I do, I really think of myself more as an oral historian than anything else. That in particular, after the segregation, after the questionnaire that had the 2 loyalty questions, and then the turmoil that caused, and then the movement, and then what happened to Tule Lake after post-segregation. And so when we do the interviews, when we hear the stories, in particular, the stories about Tule Lake are difficult. And as part of that, the ones who had perhaps the hardest time, those are the ones who are most reluctant to speak about this. And I know, and when Barbara asked Densho to work with her, we jumped at the opportunity because for years we had tried to get some of the stories of people who answered like no to the loyalty questionnaire, came to Tule Lake, renounced their citizenship, but in most cases they were very reluctant. It wasn't until Barbara, with her research and her connections, were these generally men willing to speak about their experiences. And so we're really fortunate for what Barbara has done.
About this subject, and I said, I've got the title of my first song. And I said, here it is. It's called Silence. And she said, I know that song. It goes like this. It was the easiest song I've ever written. But in talking about this subject, and so many of us, I think, can relate to the idea or the reality of silence in our families, and being a sansei, and camp, would rarely come up, or if it did come up, they would speak about it for a little while, but if it got to maybe a touchy part of the subject, it would turn into silence. And so can you speak to how silence ties into this trauma?
Well, silence is one of those coping mechanisms. It's the way to get if not yourself, your children to forget about what happened. And many parents will say, I didn't talk to you about the camp experience because I didn't want to burden you with the resentment. So it may have been a caring way of deciding to do that. But particularly Donna Nagata's work said that it was that silence that increased the level of anxiety in the sanseis. Because if you don't talk about something, there's more questions, and those questions don't get answered. We don't know how big this T-Rex is.
That list you read off earlier was just mind-blowing. I mean, no wonder we're dysfunctional. I mean, one of those things isn't enough to set some people over. I mean, that was like 20 different things, and our community had to deal with all of it. Yeah, it's amazing. Barbara?
In doing interviews looking for people to renounce or who renounce, becoming almost panicky and saying, I don't want to talk about this, or we were hung up on a few occasions. And the level of anxiety 60 years after the event was just so disturbing. It's made it so hard to tell the story because people haven't been willing to talk about it. Why, and you've addressed the hypervigilance. Is this just something that will continue unless they aggressively begin to seek some sort of healing? Well, I think if we just put it in a historical context, one of the things that happened was, in order for us to survive outside of camp, this is one of the greatest fears that people had that we aren't talking about very much. People didn't know what life was going to be like outside after 3 or 4 years in a prison camp, cut off from the news and just knowing that Japan had lost the war, unless you were an Issei that believed that they had won the war. There was this sense of dread and the need to assimilate, fit in, belong, be accepted was this intense need ultimately to present the single face of the Japanese American experience. And that was the heroism of our soldiers. Right? We couldn't be... They wanted to make sure that the disloyals were separated from the loyals. And not because there was such a truth to that, but because they had to justify an unconstitutional act that they had committed. And they were going to they needed more bodies to fight overseas. And in order to get men who were going to be drafted or to volunteer for the military, they had to call out anybody who wasn't going to present that picture to the rest of the world.
When you talk about Tule Lake, in our community, you get the reaction like you got at the Buddhist church. Oh, no, that's for the bad people. Or they say, oh, one of those. Or there's this stigma attached to the words Tule Lake in our community. And so can you speak to how what effect that has had on those that went through it and also on their descendants?
In some ways, I think about the reaction of the larger Japanese American community towards the people who were in some way dissident as a secondary trauma. That those were the stories that couldn't be told. And as Barbara explained to you, many of the people who renounced their citizenship hadn't even told their own families that they had renounced. I didn't learn about it until my parents were freaked out that I was at Berkeley and I was going to be protesting during the human rights movement. And they would call me on the phone every night and say, do not demonstrate. We don't want to see your face in the newspaper. Bad things will happen to you. And that's when I found out, because I went home to find out what was happening, because they were completely freaked out. And that's when she said, we didn't get our citizenship back until 1957, because we renounced. And I said, why didn't you tell me sooner? And she said, I didn't think you would understand. Well, and I think the tragedy is that stigma it really is so prevalent, and it's come primarily from the JCL, which is an organization which has apologized to the draft resistors, but it is an organization that has never acknowledged the really kind of vindictive and vicious treatment of people who renounced their citizenship. Back in, I guess it was in the 80s, that the Seattle chapter of the JCL sponsored a resolution number 7, and it was an apology to the draft, or rather it was crafted, it was thought to be an apology to the draft resistors, but it was actually, the language that they used was an apology to the no-nos. But this is a resolution that I think, personally, needs to be resurrected I'm going to be up in Seattle this weekend, and hopefully some of the folks up there will find some interest in promoting, sponsoring that resolution, and to begin to recognize the need for healing of that division within the community. We've been talking about the impact that the camps had on our parents, and trying to understand the level of anxiety and fear that they were filled with about having lost their freedom and the possibility that it could happen again. And so she represented to me an example of what happened to many subsequent generations, particularly the Sanseis, that the pressure to succeed, to get a toehold into American society, you had to be educated, you had to have, you couldn't be an artist or a comedian or a playwright.
I was at a JCL meeting, I think it was last year, and somebody in the audience said the word troublemaker. And it wasn't in reference to the no-nos or the renunciants, but it was said in relation to somebody who had confronted a columnist in the Ranfu Shingpo. And so he referred to her as a troublemaker. And the tone of it was the same kind of tone that you could expect that the no-nos got from a JACL person. And so when I was driving home that night, I was very disturbed by it. And so out of just sort of a feeling of despair, I looked up on the internet, Google, famous troublemakers. And I found this website, Famous American Troublemakers. And guess who I found out there? Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, Paul Revere, among others. But they were all our founding fathers. And so, in fact, it was Thomas Jefferson who said, in part, if the government abuses the rights of the people it is supposed to protect, it is the duty of the people to rebel. And so we have our no-nos, our renunciants. We have Minya Sui, Gordon Hirabayashi, Fred Korematsu. Their dissent was not disloyalty. Their dissent was and is American. And so as we celebrate the 4th of July and our freedom, let's also celebrate from this day forward our independence from the words Tule Lake disloyals. And in exchange for it, let's call them American patriots and American heroes.
This is Soji. You've heard the essence of his motion. We reject the false premises that the Tuleans were troublemakers or disloyals. Instead, we redefine their role as
American patriots and American heroes.
I so move. I'm looking for a second, and then I hope somebody will call the question. Second. Call the question?
Call for the question, that means to vote. All those in favor?
Opposed? Motion passed.
My acclamation.
Thank you all.
I can tell you that there is something called Robert's Rules of And this is how many motions are tripped up. So there is the point of discussion.
But Robert's son would like it this way.
Questions, comments?
Thank you, Soji. My name is Samina Sundar, and I think we forget dissent is patriotic. Because if you are an American, if you truly believe you're an American, you have rights and you must protect your rights and others' rights. And the day we start doing that for each other, that's the day we will have success. And it is one creator, one humanity, one nation. under God. So all of us need to stand together. And I thank all of you who since yesterday have come and showered with so much love. I just think I may become honorary Japanese.
Since their debut in 2010 at the Boston Asian American Film Festival, the Genki Spark has made over 140 public appearances at universities, schools, community events, and cultural celebrations throughout the greater Boston area, and have been featured on general presentations, TV, and radio.
put us into a camp, I've been saying these very same words. I was saying, anywhere I wander, anywhere I roam, till I'm in the arms of my darling again, my heart will find no home. Anywhere I wander, anywhere I roam, anywhere I wander, anywhere I roam. The chair is not a chair, even when there's no one sitting there. But a chair is not a house, and a house is not a home when there's no one there to hold you tight, and no one there to kiss you goodnight. I'm not meant to live alone, turn this house into a home. When I climb the stair and turn the key, oh please be there, still in love with me. Still in love with me.
And so now I present to you Shirley Morimoto.
My mother learned how to play the koto as a young girl in Topaz and Tule Lake. My mother's koto teacher at Topaz was Haruko Suwada. She was a koto teacher in San Francisco. And she learned a really old style of, well, I should say old, traditional, of playing the koto by sitting on the floor and everything by memory, no books.
Wow.
She did everything up here. Right. So my grandpa, I guess he was very creative, and he put reeds together. He tied the reeds together so they were long enough for each string. And then he went to the craft places and got scraps of wood and made the tuning bridges, they're called kotoji, out of scraps of wood, and toothbrush handles to hold the string in.
site. Especially now we have a historic structures report, which is the first stage to preserving the historic jail. All of you had a chance to go inside the jail yesterday. That jail is iconic, and it represents more than any structure on any of the other incarceration sites. It represents what happened to Japanese Americans, and it is something that we are planning to raise funds to restore.
I think realize that National Park Service has been doing a tremendous job in helping to start the process of planning. What will the Tule Lake unit of our national monument actually become? What kind of stories are we going to tell? How will they tell them? How will we spread that information, that knowledge to teachers everywhere? All of those things cost money, and this climate, it's not encouraging that we're going to expect Congress to allocate sufficient funds to the National Park Service to trickle down so that we can get our job done here at Tule Lake. So to a large extent, we depend upon you and others in the community, in our community, to help raise some funds. And our first initial target was the carpenter's shed, that we had to raise close to $200,000 as a matching funds for a grant that we received from the federal government. And I don't know how we did it, but we did it with the generosity of many of you. Now we're facing another task, and as Barbara mentioned, that task is preserving the jail structure. You saw how the condition is. It's not going to last forever unless we take steps to rehabilitate it and preserve it. And we've managed to get sufficient funds put together to have historical architects study the structure and come up with a plan to preserve it. And we have working drawings. The next step is to implement those working drawings and hire contractors and preserve that building. But we can't do it again without your help.
Right now, thank you very much. At the movie.
These are Jimmy's original paintings. All these beautiful paintings that he did while he was out on the street and probably taking in.
Secret inspired.
And there's his nurse right there. Hello, nurse.
I need a nurse. Just a good Zoom. Good powerful. Yes. Yeah. I need to be yeah. Because usually it's very quiet. Because I'm sure there are yeah, special Japanese. Yes, I would put it in that. Very nice. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, we're at the Salt Creek Falls for our lunch break. Beautiful place. There's a beautiful waterfall further down. I'm going to be taking a journey down there. And there's everybody stuffing their faces. All right, everybody, stuff your faces. This is the trail that goes down to the waterfall. And this is a real young adventurer here. Went all the way up to Castle Rock. Ah.
All the way to the top.
That was amazing.
She'll be back.
cool little trail that they've created here. Through all this woods, you got all these native rhododendrons growing on either side. Perfect mushroom picking, matsudaketori area. And here's a lookout area here. Well, this is you could see the river. Heading down towards the falls. There's the top of the falls right there. Okay. Heading down towards the falls now. You can see where it's starting to spill over. The falls right there. This is not just a tiny little falls, it is huge. Look how far down it goes. Some people that adventured all the way down to the falls. Crossing over this bridge made out of the local wood. It's kind of a boardwalk. Very nice. It crosses over the stream right over here.